From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
A new budget deal ends a brief government shutdown, what the budget entails and what it can mean for the national debt.
Still, with no immigration agreement in Washington, tempers begin to boil over here in Arizona.
And in the wake of Representative Don Shooter's expulsion, the Arizona House presents a zero-tolerance policy on sexual harassment.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Alexis Burdine.
And I'm Chaz Frazier. Thank you for joining us. After a brief government shutdown last night, the House and Senate passed a bipartisan spending bill. Arizona's delegation split their votes. Senator Jeff Flake was one of 16 Senate Republicans to vote no, but announced their passage earlier this morning as the presiding officer.
Motion to concur in the House amendment to the Senate amendment to H.R. 1892 with an amendment is agreed to.
This is a $400 billion budget plan. Trump tweeted that this budget will strengthen the military and lead to more jobs. Senator John McCain commended the new budget. The tweet said the budget deal finally makes good on our promise to provide for the men and women who faithfully serve our nation. The $400 billion budget is raising some new concerns when it comes to increasing the national debt. The national debt currently hovers around $20 trillion. Part of it is sourced from dozens of foreign nations. The top is China and Japan, which we owe more than $1 trillion each. Number 3 is Ireland at nearly $330 billion. And then it's the tiny nation of the Cayman Islands, which we owe $268 billion. The rest of the debt that is owed is right here in the United States. Social Security is the single largest source of domestic debt at $2.8 trillion, with federal and military retirement funding also high up on the list.
Left out of the budget agreement, immigration reform. President Trump and Congress have promised action next week, but it's not soon enough for activists here in the Valley, as those in favor of DACA protections and those against came face to face in front of Senator Jeff Flake's Phoenix office.
Immigrants are welcome here. Born in America, you don't know anything.
Protesting on the same sidewalk, yet standing on opposite sides of immigration reform. Two groups passionately let their voices be heard. On one end, a group of local pro-DACA and TPS advocacy groups gathered Thursday afternoon outside of Senator Jeff Flake's office, asking the lawmaker for his support.
People that had lived here their whole lives, they have established roots here in the United States, and we don't think that it's right for all of for them to be stripped down from all of those rights.
We're here kind of holding Senator Flake and pretty much like Senator McCain as well accountable for voting against the CR, the budget resolution, without the DREAM Act in it.
U.S. lawmakers ultimately voted early this morning on a 2-year budget deal that added over $300 billion to the federal deficit and left the controversial issue of immigration unresolved.
Not everyone here is in support of DACA, and those on the other side are just as passionate, arguing that the United States and its natural-born citizens should come first.
We owe them nothing, and we owe Americans everything. We owe our veterans everything. American children's dreams come before illegal aliens.
Harrison says those who oppose DACA and TPS are tired of undocumented citizens making demands to a government they say they don't belong to.
Demanding that our government be shut down to protect them, it is inexcusable and unacceptable.
Mary Mason says she legally immigrated to the United States from Cuba when she was 5 years old, adding she feels most undocumented immigrants aren't loyal to the U.S. and don't embrace its culture and history.
I know our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and I know the laws of this country.
You don't get no peace.
As the March 5th DACA deadline approaches, Senate Republicans have promised to hold a separate debate on immigration later this month.
After the expulsion of former Representative Don Shooter, House Speaker J.D. Mesnard has taken steps to ensure sexual harassment in the House is a thing of the past. Reporter Amani Stevens shares with us the upcoming policy changes at the House.
At that moment, I decided to change my motion from censure to expel. Republican House Speaker J.D. Mesnar's report defines the House's zero-tolerance policy against harassment and disorderly conduct.
For the first time, a new rule in the House rules that formally puts us under this anti-workplace harassment policy.
A policy that Speaker Mesnar says never existed before, and it covers the nature of behavior.
You know, gestures, comments that are inappropriate have no place here in the House.
The 82-page report details incidents describing sexually charged and inappropriate comments.
Incidents that happen with Representative Shooter, these are not things that happened overnight. These are things, many things in the report talk about events that happened as far back as 2011.
Allegations against former Representative Shooter regarding his conduct span from his term as state senator from 2011 to 2016, as well as serving from 2017 to last week as state representative.
And to hire outside counsel, outside investigator, expend tax dollars. Had we had some code of conduct in place that would have led to some accountability over the last 7 years, perhaps we wouldn't have to go down this road.
Speaker Mesnar says there are changes coming to the House.
There's greater sensitivity now to the types of comments that maybe in the past we rolled our eyes at but were totally inappropriate.
And Speaker Mesnar says that the House is now working to adopt a code of conduct. The code of conduct will further explain ethical dilemmas and clearly define personal conflict of interest.
We have to be held to the highest standards. We are supposed to be representing the people.
In Phoenix, Imani Stevens, Cronkite News.
Arizona voters may have another chance to weigh in on legalizing the use of recreational marijuana come November. The proposal would allow those 21 and older to possess an ounce of marijuana and grow up to 6 plants. Smoking in public would be banned, and cities and towns could bar marijuana businesses. Current medical marijuana laws would remain intact. The proposal has been a bipartisan effort. Arizona voters rejected a legalization effort in 2016, but only by a small margin.
Lawmakers are working on a new bill designed to put an end to wrong-way driving accidents by installing road spikes. When the idea for the legislation was first brought up, 9 people had been killed due to wrong-way drivers. By the end of 2017, the Arizona DPS logged more than 1,500 incidents of wrong-way drivers across the state.
In California, there are more than 13 times the number of people employed in the solar industry compared to those working in Arizona.
Coming up on Cronkite News, we take a look at the potential for solar power growth right here in one of the nation's sunniest states.
Plus, how the Arizona recess bill would change the typical day for some school kids.
Your kids had a nice recess today, but when will our temperatures look closer to normal? I'll tell you when. Your complete forecast coming up.
Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Parents and teachers continue to advocate for more recess time in Arizona schools, although legislation is not making it easy. Reporter Michaela Moorhead shares both sides of the argument.
I was a kid and I loved recess, and every kid I talk to loves recess.
Children love recess, but most Arizona schools are down to 1 recess per day. Senate Bill 1083, also known as the recess bill, would allow children K through 5th grade 2 recess periods during each school day. Beth Simic, president of the Arizona PTA and mother of a first grader, says the PTA supports this bill.
I feel like there needs to be a little bit more time for kids to relax and decompress and just be kids. You know, it's hard to expect children to sit still for hours on end.
Although many parents and teachers are for the recess bill, not everyone agrees. Chris Cotterman, Director of Government Relations for Arizona School Board Association, says the association is against the bill for one reason and one reason only.
We don't believe that the legislature should mandate to school districts what the structure of their school day should be. So we don't need the legislature to tell us, you know, how long to have math or how long to have reading or how long to have recess or when to have recess, just that that's the school board's decision.
But the Arizonans for Recess Coalition says they've tried that.
We've worked for years at the local level trying to push on that without a lot of success, and that's the reason for the bill.
The bill would allow PE classes and lunch recess to count towards the 2 recess periods. In Phoenix, Michaela Moorhead, Cronkite News.
The Senate Education Committee unanimously approved the bill and now is awaiting a vote on the Senate floor.
Leaders in California say Arizona can learn from the state's long history of success in the solar industry. Reporter Micah Bledsoe from our Los Angeles bureau takes a look at how California is taking full advantage of its sunshine.
Experts say Arizona is one of the sunniest states with lots of potential for growth in the solar market. But they also say regulations have slowed the state's growth.
And so if you really want to change the system in Arizona to enable more solar, like rooftop solar, you really need to focus on the Public Utilities Commission and the local electeds that are part of that discussion, because it's all about passing laws and making decisions at the regulatory bodies.
But it's not just about complex regulations. Some solar industry experts say the 30% tax on imported solar panels could increase the cost of solar power and cut jobs.
In the grand scheme of things, the 30% tariff on panels is a small percentage of the overall system cost, and solar is still has a really nice value proposition despite that.
Currently, the U.S. employs more than 260,000 Americans in the solar industry, most of them in installation, sales, and designing, not manufacturing.
By asking our community to install solar, by helping homes become more valuable in the long term and more resilient and better able to withstand increases in energy costs, we're at the same time creating green jobs.
Reporting for Cronkite News in Los Angeles, Micah Bledsoe.
The Arizona State Appeals Court has backed the Hopi tribe's effort to stop the use of treated wastewater in snowmaking. The rule comes after a lengthy battle between American Indian tribes and Arizona Snow Bowl. Snowmaking at the resort began in 2012 to supplement natural snow and extend the ski season. With the little snowfall, the resort has relied almost entirely on its snowmaking machines this season and has about 75% of its runs open. The Hopis argue that the plants and other objects that they gather from the mountain could become contaminated and could no longer be in use in native ceremonies.
Whether you're staying in the valley this weekend or headed up north, it's going to be a really good few days for outdoor activities.
Let's go over to Matt Kling for an update on this weekend's temps.
Thank you, guys. Well, today we reached 83 degrees. Low was 53, both of them about a dozen degrees above normal for this time of year. If you're hanging out this evening, it should be a good night to head to dinner or something. But it'll be 72. The temperature will be dropping throughout the evening as it progresses. Tomorrow, we're going to hit 80 degrees in the daytime. Should be a great day for a picnic, great day to go to a festival at all. But as we head into Sunday, take a look at this weather system right here above Denver, as well as this system off the coast of California. Both of them are going to bring clouds into Arizona tomorrow, and that's going to cool off the temperatures a little bit, as well as with our winds. They're going to pick up a little bit Saturday night into Sunday. So that's why Sunday, our high is only going to be 76 degrees, and our temps will decrease a little bit as we head into next week. Make sure to stay with Cronkite Weather for more. In the Cronkite Weather Center, I'm Matt Kling. Have a great weekend.
Stay tuned here on Arizona PBS. Our top social stories of the week are coming up next in our Cronkite News Refresh.
And for the top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. And the entire crew in the downtown Phoenix studios, have a good evening.
Welcome to @Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Let's get a refresh on the top Arizona news of the week.
Schools across the U.S. face the challenge of incorporating new technology into their curriculum each year. But for rural areas that lack sufficient access to broadband, a much larger issue is at hand. As part of our Access Across Arizona initiative to bring you news from every county in the state, Cronkite News reporter Megan Meyer takes us to Yavapai County and an elementary school in Congress, Arizona, to see how they have tackled this broadband access problem.
In a small town just outside of Prescott, the simple luxury of internet access can be difficult to come by. But now with funding from a federal E-rate program, Congress Elementary is able to move its students into the digital age.
I use technology every day in class.
Congress, Arizona. Population 4,821, and residents only have 1.5% of the FCC's recommended bandwidth. That's made it hard for students in Caitlin Hunt's first grade class to connect and use technology. But the nonprofit group Education Superhighway is helping schools find resources to increase their internet access.
By utilizing this federal funding, we were able to put in a request for fiber builds out into communities that have never received it before.
Just last year, Yavapai County's request was approved. The county received $1.8 million from the FCC's E-rate program. Already, the money is helping students close the internet access gap.
For them to be able to take initiative to walk around the classroom with the QR code app and be responsible and independent with that, I mean, I think that is just rewarding. You can tell they love technology.
The tools you see being used by students and the Wi-Fi that keeps them running at fast speeds are 80% paid for by the E-rate program. This has allowed many schools within Yavapai County to bring in new devices.
That's wonderful. Good.
To find that mechanism that we could pay for this and finally bring the broadband out to these locations, I feel like we've really accomplished the mission that we've set out to do about 5-6 years ago.
This is a day and age of, where these kids know how to run tablets and they're 6 years old and they enjoy that. They don't even know that they're learning.
In Congress, Megan Meyer, Cronkite News.
The project to bring fiber lines over mountains and under railroad tracks for the Congress Elementary District allows homes and businesses to connect to the lines as well.
It's a tough choice. Take a new job far from home or face unemployment. That's the decision facing hundreds of employees of the Navajo generating station. Cronkite News reporter Jamie Fossenkemper was at the state capitol today, where the workers were rallying to keep the plant running.
And I'm here for the long haul, and I'm here to battle, as long as you guys will battle with me.
Myron Richardson, welding supervisor for the Navajo generating station, was one of the hundreds of union mine workers, tribal members, and families from northern Arizona who marched to the state capitol today. They wanted to show their support of keeping the power plant near Page up and running. According to Salt River Project, the Navajo generating station has provided electricity to millions of people and businesses in the Southwest for 47 years. Last year, officials from the Navajo Nation and Salt River Project decided to shut down the plant.
But over time, it just became very clear to SRP and the other owners that operating the plant beyond 2019 did not make economic sense.
But the union says that decision puts hundreds of people out of a job.
Where is the nation going to be in the 400, 600, or however many jobs that are there? Those jobs will be very hard to replace.
Going forward, SRP will be providing jobs for those affected by the shutdown, but those who choose to take the Salt River project up on their offer will have to leave Navajo County.
And if SRP is trying to provide jobs, yeah, I'm interested, but I really like to stay right where I'm at.
In Phoenix, Jamie Fossenkemper, Cronkite News.
Those who choose not to leave Navajo Nation will be offered severance packages.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does an annual count of the Mexican gray wolf population as part of a recovery plan to sustain its numbers. Last fall, the Trump administration made a revision to that plan, sparking opposition from a coalition of wolf advocates. As part of our Access Across Arizona initiative, I traveled to Apache County, near Alpine, and even into western New Mexico to learn all about the wolf recovery plan.
It's a busy afternoon in the mountains of New Mexico, where the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service pursues a female Mexican gray wolf. Today, she's captured. Her radioactive collar will be replaced, so she and her family lineage can continue to be tracked.
We need the data so that we can make better decisions going forward for wolf recovery, but so that we can also make better decisions about wolf impacts on humans and livestock and things like that in the environment.
The count is a complicated mission. Helicopters track the wolves from above using darts to capture them. They take the wolf to a remote processing station where it's measured, treated, vaccinated, and given a working collar. The final step is to safely release the wolf back to its territory, where it reunites with its pack. John Oakleaf has coordinated the wolf count for more than a decade and contributed to writing a revision to the recovery plan.
You've seen some growth in the population, and it's a heck of a recovery. Anytime you go from 0 animals in the wild to a population of over 100, that's something that's pretty significant.
At last count, there were 113 Mexican wolves in Arizona and New Mexico, but the recovery plan has taken a twist.
The Trump administration finalized a revision to the Mexican gray wolf recovery plan in November of last year. Now, a coalition of wolf advocates is challenging that plan with a lawsuit.
During and after our visit, we continued to press the Fish and Wildlife Service to comment on camera about the lawsuit. They declined, instead responding with a statement saying, quote, "The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does not comment on pending litigation," end quote. The lawsuit claims the revised plan fails to provide recovery for the species and that it ignores current problems the population faces.
It doesn't deal with illegal killings, which is the biggest source of wolf mortality. It ignores suitable habitat in the United States and relies on habitat in Mexico, which is inadequate for the wolves. It sets population goals that have a high likelihood that the Mexican gray wolf will end up right back on the endangered species list.
Under the revision, the Mexican gray wolf would be removed from the endangered species list in 8 years if and when the population reaches an average of 320 in the U.S. and 200 in Mexico. Absent from the plan is introducing the wolf population into the Grand Canyon regions of Arizona, Colorado, and Utah, an expansion a Blue Ribbon Task Force of top scientists has deemed necessary for the population to survive.
Mexican gray wolves are the engine of evolution for southwestern ecosystems. The recovery plan really needs to be replaced with one that's based on science so that the wolves themselves can help balance the ecosystem and be part of the natural world forever.
The Trump administration and the Fish and Wildlife Service have yet to respond to the lawsuit. For more multimedia coverage on the Mexican gray wolves, check out our online report at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Maricopa County Community Colleges will terminate its district-sponsored football programs at the 4 schools that currently have them: Scottsdale, Phoenix, Mesa, and Glendale. Monday's decision is drawing mixed reactions on both sides. But as I found out, one thing is clear. This was a decision that all parties wish never had to be made. This injury made Division I schools hesitant to offer Phil Aholt a scholarship to play football. Turning lemons into lemonade, Aholt instead played football at Scottsdale Community College. But now, the situation has become sour. Arizona's biggest community college district is terminating each of its football programs after the 2018 season.
There's a host of reasons that go along with this. The financial constraints that we face right now, the leveling off of enrollment at all of our colleges, as well as the lack of the zeroing out of state funding for capital improvements.
It's part of a national trend that has seen a decline in junior college football programs. Of the 530 programs in the National Junior College Athletic Association, just 65 field football teams. Here in the Valley, Hassan estimates it would take between $20 and $25 million over the next 3 to 5 years for football funding alone. Former Arizona State head coach Todd Graham heavily recruited out of community colleges and thinks the district's elimination of the programs sets a bad precedent.
I think it's a sad day because a lot of kids are going to miss out on a lot of opportunities that they've had in the past that they won't have moving forward.
And Aholt feels the looming situation is unfair to those wanting a chance at the junior college level.
4 community colleges all have close to 80 to 100 kids on them. That's 400 young men right there with not necessarily knowing what they're going to do post-high school.
Now, Hassan tells Cronkite News no other sports programs will be affected by this decision, and he could not speculate about whether or not football could return to MCCC in the future.
Cronkite News tracks your likes, tweets, and shares from all our social sites to bring you this news special at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh. Join the conversation so you choose the news. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and log on to cronkitenews.azpbs.org for top Arizona stories anytime.